This is Stars and Scopes with your friend Uma, updated every new and full moon with guidance based on planetary transits in the current sky and extra support from tarot. For accuracy, take a look at your rising sign first if you know it, and do feel free to listen to your sun, moon and rising if you'd like the full picture. If you're interested in your birth chart, check out the readings page at umaruby.com, and if you'd like to support the work, head over to buymeacoffee.com/umaruby and you can buy me a coffee. Finally, if you're a visual learner, look up Uma Ruby Tarot on YouTube and you can watch and learn. Okay, let's take a look. Hello Libra and Libra rising, welcome to your horoscope for the full lunar eclipse in Taurus, happening on the 8th of November at 2 minutes past 10 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. Okay, Libra. Let's go very, very gently and think and look over your 8th house. This is where we engage in soul contracts. This is where we experience grief. This is where we experience rebirth. This is where we are bound to other folks in an obligatory kind of way. Has a lot to do with inheritance, with tax, with rental contracts, potentially. But the parts of life that are sometimes maybe a little bit difficult to talk about. There's a certain sense of taboo around the 8th house, which is kind of very alluring, but can be, a lot. I want you to think about the idea that this lunar eclipse is the third in a series. So the first lunar eclipse that we experienced was a year ago. It happened on the 19th of November. This is Southern Hemisphere timing. Yeah, the 19th of November of 2021. And then the solar eclipse we had in Taurus was April 30th of this year. And so now we're approaching, on the 8th of November, the second lunar eclipse in Taurus. So when I say all of that 8th house peculiarity, is there a pattern that you can find in your life? Is there, if you think even just as simply as like, okay, so this time a year ago, when in relationship with soul contracts, with death, with rebirth, with sort of rising, there's definitely a feeling of rising in the 8th house too. It's collaborative. It's the way, it's quite simply the way they're bound to other folks, contractually or otherwise. Is there a pattern that you can see? Was there occurrences that happened around the 19th of November last year that had this similar kind of feeling of shedding or of breaking through? When a lunar eclipse happens, we are being redirected. We are being put back on the right path, or the path that will be best for us in this lifetime. I'm going to talk about Saturn as well, Libra. So Saturn has been in Aquarius for the longest time and is forming a square with this lunation. So I told you before, a square is like a right angle, so that's pressure. It's a difficult, maybe like a fight for visibility in some way. So the sun is in Scorpio, the moon's in Taurus, right angle is Saturn in Aquarius. It's not an exact square, it's 2 degrees off, but still there's an echo of this difficulty, this tryst between boundaries and between restriction and between revolution. So Uranus is in exact conjunction with the moon, so it's almost like a full Uranus as well. So that revolutionary, that sort of breakaway maybe from some of the shackles that have bound you till now, maybe from some of the difficult relationships. This could potentially be to do with your parents. It could be to do with different other, I won't be too specific. It's up to you to tell me how it's showing up for you. But this feeling of intensity that is all wrapped up in the 8th house, this feeling of, intensity is the perfect word. I mean, grief and ecstasy hand in hand. They call an orgasm a little death for a reason. It's that intense moment of, almost out of body. How was it a year ago? How was it 6 months ago? What can you notice? What can you recognize about a rebirthing? We're in process. We're sort of, it's the third cab off the rank. So this is ground that we've covered before. But the restriction in your self-expression, your 5th house, which is where we find creativity, where we find connection and joy, where we encourage one another and roll around like happy little idiots in pure happiness. There's a restriction there with Saturn, and that's the pressurized point here. So your self-expression has some level of restriction to it, and your self-expression in regard to your 2nd house, which is where we earn money, where we find our talents, find our values, and your 8th house, which is where perhaps some of that stuff is put upon us, or where we are intensely beholden to another. That's a very interesting triangle to form. This eclipse might give you some headway, some moment of clarity, some finally maybe some direction, if you've been feeling stayed or held in place for the time being. Yeah, I want the word revolution to roll around in your head for a minute. I want that feeling of limitation to self-expression to sit with you for a moment. And I want for the light to come in, to be shed on your talent and your values, your ability to earn money, and how you're going to use that. How is that being highlighted right now that the sun is in Scorpio? The intuitive tarot cards that I got for you are very interesting. I got the 8 of Swords, the 8 of Pentacles, and the Chariot. So this tells me a pretty straightforward little narrative, and I can see that restriction right here in the 8 of Swords. I can see that kind of those limitations, those boundaries, maybe showing themselves as anxiety after a long time. It's kind of a feeling of like, I actually just have to be myself. I have to express what it is that I can see from my perspective. If I don't, I'm going to burst. Like there's a real there's an intensity here. And you can see that they're standing on ground, but there's water. It's sort of muddy, it's claggy, clayey. There's an emotional upswell that's occurred that hopefully will aid this figure on into realizing that they have access to unbinding themselves. They can lean over and cut those binds off by the swords. They feel like they're trapped, but if we look at them, the swords aren't surrounding them. The blindfold is loose. This can all fall away with a decision. And then the 8 of Pentacles is about repetition and diligence and hard work and sticking to task and committing to something practical, something on the earthly plane in a 3D world. This card talks about a workload, but one that we are really ready for, and one that we when we find a healthy rhythm, a healthy pattern, healthy work habits, all of that kind of stuff, we get into a flow. And even though it seems like a lot to get through, we'll be surprised at how much we can achieve because of the commitment. And I think that it's a commitment to expressing yourself. You know, this Saturn in Aquarius isn't going anywhere. There is going to be a boundary there for you, a limitation. But I wonder if we can use it I wonder if we can describe it in the more higher, in the higher octave, rather than limitation or restriction. What about boundaries? What about a healthy boundary to keep you on the right course, the right track, to be able to produce at this volume? I see here that this is going to be quite, it's a life's work. It's quite big. And the Chariot energy, the Cancer energy of the major secrets of the zodiac is about centrifugal force. It's about moving forward with direction, about keeping balance. And in this image, it's a balance of light and dark. It's a balance of light and shadow. Coming to understand that both of those things are the same matter and that both are essential, but the commitment to move forward with care and empathy. Remember, Cancer is nurturance. So I see you coming away from this anxiety. I see you moving forward from this kind of feeling of entrapment into a space of incredible hard work. But you've got the direction, you've got the need and the want and the yearning to do it. So that's a beautiful story, Libra. How and in what way this 8th house eclipse may manifest for you, I can't tell you for sure. You know, it happens for all of us in many different ways. If you feel obligated to a certain pathway, or if you feel obligated to a certain circumstance, if you feel bound to particular relationships in your life that feel like a soul contract, that feel like, you signed the proverbial paper, like you're in it for the long haul. We'll put it this way, Libra, there's going to be an intensely emotional shedding that will possibly occur for you at this lunar eclipse. And it's going to provide you with the gateway to move forward and beyond your perceived limitations. That's what I see. Yeah, that's what I see. That's what I see. Yeah. Your 9th house, which is ruled by Gemini for you, if you're a Libra rising, your 9th house, Libra, which is where we find expansion and philosophy and spirituality. It's where we learn, it's higher learning about, this kind of stuff, our connection to God, to spirit. It's about travel too, about journeying forwards and backwards and all around to absorb as much as we can. Right now, Mars, the planet of activation and forward movement and passion, has just stationed retrograde. So less moving forward, more moving backward. So that might be another colour to paint this reading with, another level of potential frustration. This powder keg of the eclipse, I want it to be like a champagne cork, and Mars wants that too. There's something, and the retrograde period can be looked at, and it'll be happening until January, as a time to go over before striking the match and before making it happen. So I just wanted to bring that into the arena as well, because we are dealing with some fever pitches right here in this reading. The back of the deck is the 4 of Pentacles, which says to me, hold your vision and be frugal, be mindful of the limitations being in your benefit as well. That maybe now isn't the time to, cast your magic wand and have it all happen. Maybe now is the time to really take the plan that you've been brewing away quietly with, take it seriously and activate it. Activate it one step at a time. The Eight of Pentacles, the Four of Pentacles, both. It's about diligence. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing really well. It's probably how I'll end this reading, I think, Libra. Much love to you. Do head over to umaruby.com, go to the readings page and book yourself a birth chart reading with me. There are 5 different journeys we can go down: fire, water, air, earth, or spirit. And if you're a return client, I do have a witch reading on offer, which is a much more intuitive 1-hour session with me where I just read you tarot. You ask me a question and I read the tarot. I ask the cards, separate to some of this more complex astrological language, which I find really of great benefit, and it's how I can understand everything. But it's also nice to dive into the intuition together. Once I've read your chart and I know it, then we can vibe together and we can see what comes out. I will be speaking to you in 2 weeks for a new moon in Sagittarius, which will be a great potential for magic making and for asking for what it is we hope and dream for after eclipse season's all over and done with. So until then, I love you and I'll speak to you soon. Bye, Libra.